Good afternoon. I would like to welcome everyone to the MSMBA informational webinar. My name is Taryn Nance. I am the MSMBA program manager. To my left is Dr. Alan Gray, director of the MSMBA. And then on the other side of him is 2016 graduate Bill Stump, who is the CFO of Ag Alumni Seed. As for the format of our webinar, there will be an overview of the program, as well as information on the coursework, Capstone, student demographics, and the application requirements and process. And then as you saw at the end of the email, there'll be a Q&A session. So during the webinar, please don't hesitate to text or email questions to 317-503-7149 or swainl@purdue.edu. So we will go ahead and get started with the overview of the MSMBA. The MSMBA is a dual degree in which you earn your Master's of Science in Agricultural Economics from Purdue University and your MBA from Indiana University. Again, it's very important to know these are two separate degrees. Rankings are often important to individuals when selecting a master's program. So in the most recent rankings, Purdue's Department of Agricultural Economics was recently named 4th best in the world by the Center for World University Rankings. And in April of 2017, Indiana's MBA was ranked number 1 in the US and number 3 in the world by the QS Intelligence Unit. As for the delivery of the program, this 27-month program is 85% distance delivered. The other 15% of the program is made up of 5 separate one-week residencies. Each August, we get together in Bloomington, Indiana, where IU is located. Each October, we meet here in West Lafayette. And then in May of the second year of the program, we take a one-week international trip. The cohort starts each August, and we will accept up to 30 students per class or cohort. So I'm often asked why somebody would apply to our program, and there are a number of reasons, some professional, some personal. However, the 2 examples I often like to share is we have a lot of people that often will have a technical background, like a BS in agronomy, let's say. So they have the technical skills for their job, but maybe they've been asked to take on a new role within their organization, or they've decided to apply for a new role. So in management, let's say, so that person needs more business skills as part of the next step in his or her professional development. And then on the flip side, you might have someone who earned a bachelor's degree in business, and as they take on an increased responsibility, they need advanced framework and knowledge, a knowledge base to make decisions in this very fast-paced, ever-changing industry. So with that, Dr. Gray, why offer a program with 2 separate degrees?
Right, well, it's a good question, Taryn. Why 2 different degrees? You know, what we noticed, so where are we now? Are we class 15 or so? We're 15 years, 16 years into this process now of offering this degree. So back 15, 16 years ago, in our Center for Food and Agricultural Business, we had done a lot of work in executive education, working in non-degree programs, working with lots of people around the industry, and recognized the need amongst that group of that they were looking for this opportunity to get to an advanced degree. 2 things they actually noticed, or 2 things they actually told us was, 1, it's hard to leave work in agriculture. There's just so much going on and so much work to do, and actually, in a lot of ways, shortage of people to do it, so it's hard to leave work. So that was one of the things. And the second thing was that the value of the MBA was a valuable degree to have in industry. They recognized the value of the MBA, but that they wanted something that was agriculture focused. Well, there's no ag school in the country that offers an MBA, right? Those come from business schools. And so you started to begin to think about how do we put together a program that would have an MBA but would also have an ag focus to it. And as we began to work with Indiana University to think about how we might partner, we realized in that case we could offer 2 degrees. We could get a full Master's of Science in Agricultural Economics and then an MBA from the Kelley School of Business and do all of that in 27 months. Well, that's a unique product now because you really do end up with 2 degrees. One that's more technical focused, quantitative focused, the way we do things in a Master's of Science that has sort of a research component to it. I think we'll talk in a little bit about a capstone, sort of research component to it. And then this business school approach, which is much more about the functional level of business skills and the networking across a set of industries. So we decided that you know, this meets the needs of our clientele to have that MBA, but to give that MS focus to it was a nice piece to have an MS, and then it's in agriculture, right? So that's sort of the reason why we began to offer this program that has 2 full degrees in it.
Sure. And Bill, kind of knowing the reasons you applied to the program initially on your own, coupling that with the fact you actually went through the program, in your opinion, what are some of the reasons someone should pursue this degree?
I was seeking skills. I had a management degree from Krannert, so I felt like, well, I have the managerial side of this, it's not a problem, maybe. But I can always improve those skills, as well as the technical piece that's offered by the Masters of Science degree. Getting an MBA from the Kelley School, to me, was an added bonus, but I really wanted the nuts and bolts Masters of Agricultural Economics, because I didn't feel like I had a strong ag background. And although I work in agriculture, that's not the education that I started with. And studying things like trade policy and trade economics, and how, you know, those currency valuations all over the world affect the prices of wheat and corn and other commodities, was really helpful for me. It was important for me to improve the skill set that I had, and improve by learning things that I didn't have access to before.
Right. And speaking of learning, although more and more schools with global brands and reputations have moved into the online degree space, oftentimes I'm asked by people, you know, online degrees, and I can go through statistics of the changes in the number of schools that are offering them, the research that's showing actually people are learning more by online delivery versus in person anymore, just based on new technologies and stuff. What do you have to say to those still stuck on, maybe I'm going to call it the stigma of earning a degree online?
It's hard work. The advantage of working at it online on an asynchronous basis is, for me, I learn things visually, and sometimes I have to see it 6 times. Well, it's really hard to attend a course and say, okay, I'm sorry, professor, could you stop and do that a 4th time and a 5th time? And it's, sorry, they've just got 25 other people in the class that are trying to take the course. Yeah. But I can do that at home, and I can stop, and I can hit pause, and I can go check on the kids, and then I can come back and say, all right, let's try that again, or maybe I need to look at it in a different way, or I need to reread the chapter and then watch a lecture again. The asynchronous delivery worked out really well. In so many ways, it was more helpful than being on campus and limiting your time with the professor to 40 or 50 minutes. I can send an email at 10 o'clock, and maybe the professor will get it then, or maybe at 8 in the morning, and I get immediate feedback, or maybe they're open for a telephone call in a way that I hadn't experienced with other schools.
Sure, very good. And as a reminder, as everyone sitting here listening, please text questions, email questions. We'll get to them at the end. So another question I'm often asked about the program is, how in the world do you earn 2 separate degrees in such a short period of time? Probably doesn't seem like a short period of time to you, but
it does now.
Okay. So the structure of the program, at the end of the 27 months, you have earned 57 total credits over the course of the entire program. In terms of the Purdue MS degree in and of itself, it takes 36 credit hours to earn that degree. 21 of those credits are earned at Purdue. 15 of those credits are transferred in from IU. The IU MBA is earned with a combination of 51 credit hours, 36 of the hours from courses at IU, and then 15 credits transferred in from Purdue. At IU, you take the typical kind of classes that are, part of an MBA: HR, marketing, management, finance, accounting, operations, law. Plus, I'd say one of the big selling points of this program is that you wrap up the MBA with 3 electives of your choice. So, maybe you want to stick to finance, maybe you want more about management. So that's kind of a nice touch at the end. You put your own stamp on it. But at Purdue, your courses in econ, quant, strategy, problem solving, project management fit within the context of the agribusiness industry. And I think this is what truly makes our program unique, and probably the only kind like it in the world, I would say. That said, Bill, and when it comes to the coursework, how applicable was the coursework to your job, not only during the program, but now that you've been out for a little bit over a year?
I'll handle the during first.
Sure.
it was not uncommon for me to work on, even early in the course, quantitative analysis and get reminded of all the statistical things I'd forgotten, and then learn new ways that things regress. And so multiple regression analysis, you learn all these great things, and then I can come to work and look at, okay, here's our crop trials. I wonder what all the CVs are on it and how that applies to maybe what our customers are wanting based on regression analysis. So it's immediately applicable. Accounting and finance courses, of course, are that way. There are several other classes that fall in that same boat where you learn it that night and then go to work and go, okay, well, I have a very similar spreadsheet that I've already worked on at work. I just didn't know I could do this with it, and then you apply the things that you learn. After going through the program, I would say a lot of the coursework is very applicable, and I find myself going back to notes that I took, here's 18 months ago. I remember there was a way to analyze this data, and now that I have a real data set like that in front of me, how do I do it? And I get rusty, so I have to go back and look at my notes. Here's how you pull it together, and then do that analysis, do that ROI comparison, do the ROA comparison, find out what works best. And I find myself coming back to the notes. I find myself looking at information in a different way. I read a lot more than I used to before going into the program, Wall Street Journal, The Economist, and follow financial trends and say, wow, I understand that this might be a policy that the U.S. government wants to change, but they don't understand how those numbers are calculated and what that really means for the price of certain commodities over time. And so it just changes the way you look at the world.
Sure. And then kind of going further more into you speaking about the courses, using it immediately. The delivery of the courses, we're on 11 to 12 week modules, not semesters. You'll have 2 courses every 11 to 12 weeks, and then a 1 week break, which is nice. We use Canvas as our learning management system or our platform. There's a lot you can do with it, so that's why Purdue uses Blackboard, but we host both sets of classes on Canvas. And then Bill alluded to it earlier, but asynchronous learning, anytime, any place. So let's say you're going to have a busy week. Obviously, it's no secret, a big part of this program is balancing family, work, and life. So with Canvas, it has an app, so it allows you to download information to your iPad, to your Samsung Galaxy, whatever technological pieces of equipment you have. So, and like anytime, any place, but not only that, as Bill alluded to, you can go back and re-listen to a lecture. You can go back and read an article type thing. So it's not a one and done type scenario, and you're not only relying on the notes that you might have taken by yourself. Maybe you missed over something. So after that, Bill, and you kind of alluded to it a minute ago, but can you speak to the impact, even though it's distance delivered, of the faculty, their impact on you?
The faculty are great. They're
Of course
very
he's going to say that.
Right,
yeah.
I know Dr. Gray's sitting right next to you. I was going to say that. But.
I think the advantage, at least in my case, was because it's both delivered distance and in person. I got to meet the faculty members that I was learning from in a distance setting, and I got to work with Professor Gunderson as part of my Capstone program, and that's great. He was a great resource. We'd go and meet for lunch even, and I'd pick his brain about how does this work and how does it not work. I felt like we had access to some of the greatest economic minds, especially at Purdue, while going through this program. Phil Abbott was great. I really struggled with every part of the distance learning for certain economic theories. Well, I'd either email his assistant at the time or email him and say, look, I don't understand this. And he'd always, okay, well, we'll relate it in a different way. Having access to somebody that can relate things to you and understands your industry, your background, your education level is just huge, because they don't expect all of us to have a PhD in mathematics to be able to calculate this stuff. He goes, no, it's complicated. Here's a quick formula I came up with. Let's use that, and we'll try it in a couple different examples that we know are real world examples, and then now we can apply it to other theories or ideas. It was great.
Good. And I guess to that point, time and commitment in the program, I did fail to mention.
Sorry.
No, it's not your fault. It's my fault. I'm going to go ahead and say it's about 20 hours per week. Is that a fair assessment in time in terms of assignments and reading and things like that?
Yeah, there are weeks that it's going to be 35 hours.
Sure.
It's just difficult because you have a lot going on, and maybe this concept's really difficult for you and you have to go over it 4 or 5 different times. And there are other weeks where you can put in 5 or 6 hours maybe and you're great, you know, as long as you keep up on the reading and stay current with it. There's more ebb and flow. It's not always a steady workflow, which is good. Otherwise,
Right.
you get completely burnt out. And at the end of every 12 weeks, there's usually a week off, which is great. So you get a reprieve, sort of hang out with the family, and then you're back at it. And the first few weeks are always really difficult because you're learning, well, what's the timing of this course? Because certain courses are front-loaded towards the beginning of the week versus the end of the week, and it's different. But 20 is probably a fair estimate.
Sure.
The other thing I think, Bill, it's about the time. Of course, the time commitment is significant. We always say, if 2 degrees in 27 months was easy, everybody'd be signing up for it. So we don't want to pretend like it's not easy, right? But I've always thought that, one, we have a cohort. So you come in with 30, you
yeah.
stay with the 30, and each module you're in a team.
Right.
So and the teams learn to work with each other and learn how to balance time. So sometimes
Yeah.
it's a 20-hour course week of material that's got to be done, but you've got 60 hours of work at real work to do. Maybe the team's going to figure out how to help you with that and say, you know what, we're going to get you through this because this is a tough week for you. And the next week, it's going to be another team member who says, hey, wait a minute, I've got a tough week this week. So, and that's one of the things I think in our program we've always tried to recognize. These are working professional people who are trying to balance work, life, and school. If we can keep them together as a cohort, keep them working in groups, that they and particularly in where they all have a similar interest in the industry, they begin to understand each other.
Oh, yeah.
I think makes for a unique balance that allows for us to be able to say, okay, yeah, 1 week 35 hours, 1 week 10 hours, but the
Right.
reason we can do that is because we're kind of doing this as a group.
Sure.
And a lot of the cohort helps a lot because there might be skills that I'm really good at, just naturally, or I have a lot of experience with them, and it works really well for me. Accounting was a good example of a class that I took, and I didn't have to put a whole lot of effort into. But there were some team members that I had that going, whoa, I really don't understand how you got from point A to point B. Well, that's fine. You know, we'll sit down and talk through it and come up with examples. But there were other pieces of coursework that I didn't understand. I could rely on the rest of the team members to say, okay, Bill, here's why it works and how it works, and this is the industry standard. Oh, okay, great. So as much as you get learning from the professor, there's also learning among the cohort, and that's probably as valuable as the learning you get from the professor.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, Alan. I see you on a daily basis. I hear
Yeah.
you talk about the program. In a sales pitch perspective to current students, to alums. Why do you like teaching in this program so much?
Well, it's really, in a lot of ways, it's pretty simple. It's about the ability to interact with professionals making real decisions in the industry. It challenges me every day in the classroom to say I better be talking about things that are relevant and immediately applicable to them. You know, one of the things I learned a long time ago when I started teaching this program. These people are busy working professionals. If you're not giving them stuff that they see as relevant and I can put to work right now or very soon, they're not going to tolerate you for very long. They're not interested in you sitting there and espousing on about some theory that doesn't really have anything to do with what they're doing. And so it made me a better teacher in general to be able to work with this group. I'm better in my classrooms on campus because I interact with this set of professionals who's helping me think more carefully about, okay, these concepts we're talking about, how do we actually use them? So that's one of the reasons I really like it. And the other reason is that so often I just learn probably more than they learn. In fact, I know I learn more than they do from me. And luckily, so far, they haven't figured that out, or they'd probably start sending me a bill saying, well, if I'm going to have to teach you all this stuff, why aren't you paying for it? But so I really do like it. I really do like that ability to interact with professionals working in the industry and saying, okay, let's take academic concepts. They're, of course, academic concepts, but let's take those and figure out how we can be better in business making decisions with this stuff, and that's really enjoyable to me. And the other reason is meet. we get a chance to have dinner together at my house during one of the residencies when they're here, and then we get a chance to go and visit. We've been to Argentina for many years. We've been in Brazil now for several years. Not sure where we'll go in the future. We may change that up, but those are places we've been. Both those places have excellent meat, and so I've always enjoyed the fact that, Bill, we get to eat lots and lots of meat while we're together, and since I'm a big fan of that part of agriculture and want to support it, that's what I like to do. So that's another reason why I love being in this program.
That's good. That's important. So as much as Bill sees faculty's impact on the students, you see the impact and value of the students being in the program on faculty, and feel like you could speak to that.
Yeah, and Taryn, you know, okay, so it sounds like a sales pitch. Of course, the professor's going to stand in front of me and say, "Oh, I learned as much from the students," but it's not. It's really it's as honest as it can be, and it's not about just me. Every faculty member that teaches in this program, when I talk to them about it, they all talk about how much fun it is to teach in this program with this set of really bright people who are in the profession. Right, we have probably one of the greatest trade economists in the world has been teaching a course for us. Right, he's MIT trained. He's smarter than I ever thought about being. Not even close. Right, really, but he really enjoys this because it's challenged him to say, "Wait a minute, all these theories that I've learned about trade, how does it actually matter in industry?" He tells me about this time and time again. This is why he loves teaching in this program. And so it's not just me saying that as the director, and I'm sure if you're out there and out there listening to us and you're saying, well, of course he's going to say that. I'm being very truthful with you. I tell you, every faculty member says the exact same thing. It's a real joy to work with folks like Bill and challenge us to think about what we're doing in the class, challenge him to think about what he's doing in his decision making, how he could take these things and apply them and become better at them. It's just it's the best experience you can have as a teacher.
And to that point, I think of Dr. Gunderson. I can't tell you the number of times the students that are fortunately enough local will see either when they're in the program or afterwards in his office, like bouncing ideas off him, or, hey, this is my problem. How would you handle this? What would you do? So it's always nice for me to see, or yesterday I saw Dr. Bolgi and his TA Wes down the hall in a conference room on a call with a group of students that were having problems with the concept. I don't know. From my perspective, I just think that's neat. I don't necessarily know that you always get that.
I always felt as a student that if I asked a professor a question, you know, in my mind, my question really, really matters. But
Sure.
There are so many times you're an undergrad, you can ask a question and they go, okay, yeah, you know, get out of my office. But with this program, I felt like every professor really wanted to know, okay, I want to understand the nuts and bolts of exactly how the business works or exactly the question so that I can give you the best answer possible. Mm-hmm. And they, in my case, I work in a popcorn seed company, so there's just tons of questions. I didn't know that's how popcorn was done, or I didn't know that's what mattered, and I didn't know that those were the traits that were important. But now I know, and now that I have that information, I can come up with an answer or information that would be helpful in making you make that decision.
Sure.
And that was great. I felt like, wow, we were actually valued individuals versus, all right, you know, next, let's get the next student through, let's get the next student through.
That's important.
Taryn, not to interrupt you, sorry, but I do think it's important also to think about, we've always thought about this program in that way. It's sort of the ability to individualize it as much as we can. You know, when we, in the MSMBA, our concept is not, let's do an online program so we can run thousands of people through it. Right. 30 in a cohort, that's
Right.
it. But we're not your standard distance education degree program that just says, just come and sit in front of a computer for, 2 years and we'll hand you a stamped degree. That's not what we're trying to do, right? And I think Bill is trying to explain that. Look, we're high touch.
Right.
We're high touch with our staff. We're high touch with our faculty. With this group of 30, trying to give them the highest impact we can give them in the program. Yep.
That's good. Kind of following along those lines of individualizing the program a little bit, as Bill knows and probably appreciates, I wish I would have had this as well too. This program does not have a thesis, it has a capstone project. What is a capstone project? It is, it starts off as a 6-credit, what we call educational experience. In the end, you complete a research paper that's a practical alternative to the traditional master's thesis. Why a capstone versus a thesis? I'm often asked this question. We see the capstone allowing students to apply the concepts and techniques learned in the various courses to a real problem, concern, business decision within their organization. And then each student is paired with a faculty mentor who helps guide them through the process, the application of the concepts learned throughout the program. So the capstone not only helps students develop professional skills, but I'm going to go out on my number's going to sound high, but I don't think it's too far of a limb. I would say, but in more cases than not, I'm going to go over 90%. It helps the company make more informed business decisions. And then kind of to the competition side of this is each year at graduation, one student is awarded the Founders Cup, and the cup winner has done an outstanding job of not only identifying a problem, but also analyzing that problem and then communicating the results effectively. So, Bill, not to make you cringe, but describe your overall experience for me with the capstone. Were you able to, in fact, pull together the knowledge and experience you got through your courses to create a project that you feel made an impact on your company?
I was. I probably started too early. You start with an outline of what you think you want to accomplish. And I started like right as the program started because I knew I get to do this capstone, it's going to be awesome, and I'd write down an outline of what I thought I needed to do, and then I'd learn more coursework and go, I don't have nearly enough data to support that theory.
Sure.
So go back and get the data and do the analysis. Okay, well, that's great data and it's good analysis, but it doesn't impact the decision. Scratch all that, let's start over. And it's sort of a living, growing document. And as I learn new concepts, new ideas, new theories, all right, let's plug them in and see if they all still, does it hold water? Does it work? Is it applicable? And I used probably finance, accounting, marketing, a lot of quantitative analysis, and I think a few operations management courses just in getting my capstone out. And being able to talk with a professor one-on-one to work through that, and somebody who understands what's going on was really helpful too. Professor Gunderson did a great job of weeding out, well, you have a huge project and there's no way you're going to do all of that, and it's not even reasonable or feasible, and even if you got all that done, how would it impact your decisions? Let's trim it down to something that's manageable and will actually have an impact.
Sure. So Alan, taking the capstone's impact on one's company a step further, in your conversations with industry leaders, people that have had students in the program and go through the program, what outcomes or developments have these companies seen from the capstone?
So the capstone, if we think about it, so one, back to your question about why a capstone instead of a thesis. So it's really about a change in the focus of what the outcome is meant to be, right? A thesis, the outcome of a thesis is really to think about moving the edge of science and then being able to publish that in scientific journals, and that's good, and most of the time is to prepare those people then likely for a PhD or something like that. The capstone's purpose is to have an impact on the person and their company, right? So we're really thinking about an experience here that's going to be developmental for the individual and also then have a real impact on the company. And it has that dual focus to it. When we do the capstone, we really push folks to make sure we do that, right? So most of the folks, when I talk to them about the impacts of the capstone, where we have the most impactful capstones, right, are the ones that somebody's working on a project that's stretched them beyond their current job. So they're going to be working on a problem that they would normally do in their normal course of business, and this is going to demonstrate to the company the ability of this person to move to go above where their current responsibilities are, right? It's going to help this person think about, okay, what does it look like to be working on projects at a bigger level than I'm currently at. So now I'm thinking about my coursework and how it helps me be capable of doing that piece and demonstrating that. And that's the development of the person. And most people say that's the biggest impact of the capstone. This is the development of the person. But then do we have impacts of that capstone on the business? And the answer is for many of these projects, actually quite large impacts at times on the business. I've been told many, many times by people in the industry saying, you know what, that capstone project that this person in our company did through your program. That's a $100,000 consulting project if we'd hired McKinsey or somebody to do that. And so we've had probably more impact than we would have had we hired them, because this is somebody internally understands our organization, moves this project forward, and has the ability to then help make sure it gets implemented in the company afterwards, right? And so we have a number of stories we'd be happy to share with you where we've had giant increases in revenues or reductions in costs. A cheese company I worked with, a student in a cheese company in Ireland, for example, we worked really hard on how we were managing waste in the cheese factory, and a lot of it actually had to do with the diet of the dairy cow during the particular winter months where they had to change the diet because of the weather. And because of that, there was too much extra whey coming into the cheese factory, and that's an offload that costs a lot of money. Right? They were able to figure out ways to change the diet while not reducing the comfort level on the cow. They reduced the amount of whey and reduced their costs. It's $1.5 million a year in savings forever.
Sure.
That's a huge,
right.
Huge impact, right? Just through some, and that's really basic, simple stuff that we're thinking about there, but has a really big impact on the company. So often these capstones have really big impacts on the company, not just impacts on the person.
Right. And speaking of big impacts on companies, some people might be sitting here cringing, thinking, "Oh my gosh, my company's not going to let me use data or share revenue or processes for the sake of competitive advantage." But rest assured that this information from your capstone and your capstone results leave with you when you leave campus. They're not stored in the Purdue library or IU library, and if necessary, maybe putting the cart ahead of the horse. But professors, your mentor can sign non-disclosure agreements if necessary. Those are typically pretty big questions.
Yeah. Again, the focus of the project's not
Sure.
publication. The focus of the project's impact on the company. So
Right.
the private data is usually not an issue for us. A company can get comfortable with that idea of knowing that we're here to help, and then we're going to give that project back to you.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm often asked, who or what is our typical student? And I think, as I've alluded to, and maybe Bill's alluded to in talking about his classmates and cohorts a little bit, I don't think you can say there's a typical student, as everyone has A, a different background, and B, a different motivation for being in this program. I will say, though, there are, I would say, 3 core groups or buckets. Alan likes to use the word buckets, so we'll use the word buckets, that we draw people from, or they fall into. I would say agribusiness managers, food firm managers, and then commercial growers, farmers, and ranchers. And then within those groups, some of the common job titles are agronomists, account managers, analysts of different types, CFOs, communications, food technologists, loan officers, marketing managers, merchandisers, operations managers, and sales reps. We do have a number of PhDs that have gone through and are in this program, people with advanced degrees, such as law degrees. So, like I said, I don't think there's a typical student per se.
Midwest, Eastern United States, Western
Sure.
United States, Honduras, Brazil, Argentina, Guatemala,
Yeah.
China, Indonesia, Germany.
Sure.
So where do they come from? All over the world. What's their
Yeah.
background? All kinds of
Lots of-
backgrounds, males, females. There isn't, I don't think, it's sort of every class is like a calico cat, I guess. It all has its own set of colors and spots
Sure.
and backgrounds associated with it. So,
and am I going to stand out? That's often another question. Am I too young for this program? Am I too old for this program? Do I have anything to offer? No, not really. To that point, here's a little bit of a snapshot of the first year class right now. They're about 30 years old, almost 8 years experience. We're almost at the point where we're half females, half males, so we're getting there. That's important. Geographical distribution that Dr. Gray just alluded to: West Coast, Midwest, South, East. It's all represented. Midwest is heavy right now, but the East Coast is second, followed by the West Coast. And then we do have an international flair to it, so that's helpful too. And although Dr. Gray might sit here and argue with me that I'm going to say perhaps the most important benefit of this program might be the networking. From the Purdue perspective, your cohort will be made up from people from all parts of the food and ag chain. Your IU courses, like we've alluded to, are general business courses, and your cohort will also include a set of people outside of the food and ag industry, but there's a lot to this because it'll allow you to not only learn about other industry and how they apply concepts, but I think students are typically surprised at what they can bring from other industry into the food and ag industry. So with that, Dr. Gray, will you share with me your opinion on the influence and impact of networking within the program?
Well, she says, you say I'll argue with you. I guess, I'd like to think I'm the most important thing. The sage on the stage is supposed to be the important thing. That's not really the case. Of course it's not. The course material is very important, right? But where the course material comes alive is in the cohort itself. That's where what happens, I think, is that the cohort begins to create this common language, even though they may be from different backgrounds, different parts of the country, and different parts of the industry. They have sort of a common language that they learn, and then they carry that common language with them from class to class, semester to semester, and then after the program continue to carry it on with them. And this is what we see time and time again, is that these cohorts become really close with each other. In fact, they become close with the cohort behind them, the cohort ahead of them. And these communications that they then have beyond the program it's amazing to me. There's a group of folks, Bill may be a part of this, but there are a group of folks that get on the phone like once a month or so as a big group of people and just kind of talk about what's happening in your part of the industry or your part of the industry. That they do that on a fairly regular basis, and then everybody, lots and lots of the students tell me, well, I'm concerned about, I may be at Syngenta, and things I'm working on have something to do with poultry, and I can't understand really what's going on in the poultry side of the industry, and I'm going to call up my cohort member from Cargill and say, tell me what's going on down there on the poultry side of the industry, because it's affecting us back here. And the next thing you know, there's a conversation that is really rich, one, across a common language, and two, now we're really connecting pieces of the industry that might not otherwise connect with each other. And that's become a really, really powerful part of the program. And so I don't think I can really argue with you. While I'd like to think I'm the most important piece, I'm probably the least important piece. It's that cohort that and that sort of relationship they build with each other that's really important.
I was going to say, and that networking, you kind of alluded to it, but I'm going to let Bill speak to this. This networking isn't just on a professional level.
No.
Yeah, I mean, when I talk to prospective students, whether it's in person or on the phone or their face, the look on their face goes radio silent when I'm like, even though this program is mainly distance delivered, you won't believe how close you get to your classmates. And there's this silence, like, I know they think I'm crazy, but anyway. So Bill, I mean, can you talk about it and talk about how you've stayed in contact with your cohort?
I want to say there were 8 or 10 couples, the cohort members and their spouses that met in Milwaukee here just last month at one of our cohort members' house, and it's like, hey, let's go, get together for a weekend and let's go do some stuff together, just because we haven't seen each other since Brazil. Let's go hang out, and it's great. So many of, obviously the cohort members have gone through this program, and they have a lot of similarities and same stories and challenges, and we want to update on what's going on, but. Our support networks, our spouses have gone through a very similar program. That the other end of it, they had to run the house while we were out for a week, or tied up, and we couldn't help with the kids, and so they have their own sort of network, if you will. It's great to have that team and to be able to call on them. I was talking before this started about a cohort several years ahead of me had an individual in it that had some skills that I thought would be helpful, and he offered his support to me. He's like, hey, just reach out and call and ask some questions. So the cohort we have is tight, and that's great, and we can communicate with each other and still do keep in contact, but there's also a network of, hey, I know somebody else has been through that program, so if I'm looking at a resume or if I'm looking at something and I see some common denominator, I'm probably going to reach out and contact a person who's in that program and say, hey, what's going on, or is this valid, or is this information true? What I'm getting in the newspaper, is that the whole story, or since you're working in the food industry, is there more to it that I don't understand? And having that access is huge.
And I think too, for myself, even personally, the network that you guys have, I can be empathetic to the program, but I've never been through the program, so it's nice to have you guys as valuable resources to, I I appreciate the fact that, you know, you guys will say, okay, this is what's great, this is what the struggle is, but I also know that I can, you know, share your contact information with prospective students and full disclosure.
And of course, you've heard me say this before, Taryn, but I fundamentally believe it that you know this industry, the food and ag business industry, particularly, it's ultimately built on relationships.
Sure.
And it's about people, right? At the most basic level. I mean, we're trying to feed the world and feed
Right.
people, and relationships are really the things that matter. And we're intentional in the program in terms of trying to help build that piece of it. We don't just want it to be about subject matter. We don't want it to just be about classes. We don't want it to just be about the industry. We want it to be about how do we help build a set of relationships, and so how do we do that? Well, I mean, our residencies are intentionally on the ag econ side of the program, the MS program. We intentionally bring people together into these residencies in some intense coursework. Bill will tell you it's really intense, but we
Sure.
intentionally bring them together for that week in that intense setting, because having to dig in and figure out how to survive a week of boot camp with Mike Gunderson and Mike Bolge is going to create a relationship and a bond amongst the group that you will be irreplaceable, I think.
Right.
And so for us, we've really tried to design the program in a way that recognizes that a key part of this is about relationships. I'm talking about personal relationships, not just professional relationships. And by the time we get together in our international residency, we're like a family. Right,
Yeah.
and can really enjoy that opportunity to recognize that all of us are going and experiencing these life-changing events together. So it's really an important part of the program.
Sure. Again, if you have questions, please send them in. We'll get to them here in a few minutes. So I'm going to kind of fly a little bit here through the application requirements, because if you've been on our website, you will see I do like to have conversations with each person. We try to take these two major R1 universities, IU and Purdue, and make them as small and as personable as possible. Hopefully you're getting that feel a little bit today with that conversation. So I'm going to go over these, and we can talk more on an individual basis, because I think one of the neat things about this program myself is, even though we have two highly ranked, highly competitive institutions in global rankings, each person is looked at individually in terms of their application and, you know, strengths and weaknesses. So a bachelor's degree is required for everybody. At least 3 years experience in positions with increasing responsibility. The reason for this, I haven't alluded to it yet. I don't know that anyone else has, but so much of this program is based on A, what's going on in the industry right now, but B, your own experiences. So that's why that's very important to, and as both these guys have alluded to, everyone brings a lot to the table to share with each other. So to have that, to be able to go on. GRE or GMAT scores, again, we look for scores in at least in the 30th percentile, but we can talk about that more on an individual basis. The TOEFL is required for international applicants. Don't need a visa. IU doesn't need a visa anymore, so just the TOEFL, and then yes, the GRE and or the GMAT, not the GMAT and GRE, TOEFL, GRE, or GMAT. Employer recommendations, you'll be required to submit 3 of those, one being your direct supervisor. Those, the statement of purpose, and your resume are all part of the Purdue Graduate School application. But again, I look forward to those interested in the program having an individual conversation with you to go through the process and things like that. So quickly here again, so we can get to these questions. In terms of the cost of the program, it's approximately $65,000-ish, a little bit more. For both degrees, again, that's both degrees, so it's a pretty good value once you look at the fact that an MBA from IU in and of itself is $58,000. So in terms of cost, Purdue bills at $11.65 a credit hour, IU $11.45. With that includes room at all residencies, including the international residency, most meals, but you are required to get yourself to all residencies in terms of transportation. I'm often asked about cost of textbooks and stuff. Love our economists. They try to find older versions of textbooks so they won't cost you as much as if you were to walk into a bookstore today and go into sticker shock. But so I provide that information. A lot of people get those textbooks from Amazon, textbook brokers, second, third party
Amazon rents a lot of them too, which
Right,
we found
you-
it to be really handy.
Sure.
Yeah, you can just rent the book if you need.
Yeah, well, and then if it's digitally, you can do this neat thing where you search,
Right.
and it shows up in the book, versus I have a paper copy and I've got to flip through 600
Right.
pages to
Right.
get to the index and then go back, and I can just hit find
Right.
and it shows up.
So you can probably count on about $200 per module.
Yeah.
High, I would say that's pretty high end for textbooks, software, anything, any license needed for programs like At Risk, we provide that. Financial aid is offered and available. Again, that's an individual conversation. All financial aid runs through IU, but we can talk about that individually. And then in terms of billing, you pay per module, and you are billed before that, and payment is typically due at the start. There are payment plans. Again, we can get into those. I'm going to go ahead and have my contact information on the screen. You'll see my email, my cell phone, and my office number. Please don't hesitate to call me, text me, email me at any point in time. My job's not 8 to 5. I realize most of you probably need to discuss it with your husband, wife, significant other. You might have questions. Please never hesitate to reach out, even if it's, past 5 o'clock Eastern. So, and I really mean that. I would hope Bill would attest to that too. So, I would be your advocate before, during, and after the program. So please keep that in mind.
It's one of the things I think, another one of the things I think is an important differentiator of our program from many others that I'm familiar with. As Taryn mentions about this, so Purdue's a large institution. Indiana's a large institution, 2 big R1 universities, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of paperwork and administrative activities that have to go on at a university like this. It could be a pretty daunting task for a person online somewhere else to try to figure out how to navigate Purdue University, Indiana University, to figure out as a student what it is
Right.
that you need to be able to do. In this program, as part of that high touch, we've tried to make sure that we make these 2 big universities as small as possible for you. Your first point of contact is Taryn, and Taryn can take care of most anything in the university, and if she can't do it herself or with you directly, the 2 of you together work on it, she knows the person for you to go to and how exactly to get through that process. So that overwhelming feeling of how am I going to manage to figure out how to do the things I am going to be required to do to finish up my degree, pay my bills, do whatever the things may be administratively that need to be done. We want to make you feel like that this university is not anywhere near as big as it is, that it's a little small place that's easy, sort of one-stop shop, and Taryn does a great job of that. She won't brag on herself, so I'll do it for her. That it's a really key part of what creates that differential for our program.
And I think another thing too that I should point out, I lost my train of thought a little bit. But also 2 other key players in this program are Katricia Sanchez. She handles all logistical things in terms of residencies. So yes, you get yourself here, but once you're here, basically all you have to worry about is class. And I know going back to the online thing, another thing people sometimes are frightened by, I guess is the word I'm going to use, is, oh my gosh, I'm in my 40s, I didn't have online learning, I don't know what a learning management system is. I think it's also key to point out that, like I said, although all courses run through Canvas, we have someone, Liza Brownledge, who is our online distance ed specialist. So if you have a problem, you can email her, you can call her. You're not sent to IU's call center, you're not sent to Purdue's call center. So the response is pretty immediate, and professors have a nice policy too of getting back to you within 24 hours. So I think that's important as a whole. There's no aspect of this program where you're kind of out on a limb. And I have a good counterpart at IU and Amanda Thacker, and if I can't answer your question, I will get right to her. Sometimes I will have to direct you right to her because there are some things I don't know the answer to.
I had experiences where I'm working on homework it's 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. I don't understand why I can't upload this form or answer this question, and shoot Liza an email. In 10 minutes, this is the issue you're running into, Bill. Okay, thanks. And I'm back on. You guys are there all the time, which is huge.
So, all right, questions. Keep them coming if you have them. Here's our first one. Are there opportunities to work remotely with or for professors doing academic research? Or do you want to answer that, Alan? I'm reading this one.
Yes. So actually, of course, there are opportunities to do things with the faculty member would be the answer to that question directly. What we would normally want to do in this case, particularly in this program, is to make sure that the work we're doing is focused on something probably related to the capstone or to the business activity. Of course, if the person is interested in some things that maybe aren't directly related to their business, certainly faculty members would be interested in working with them on it. I'll give you an example of where that sort of thing has happened before, Taryn. We had a student actually from Argentina actually working in Brazil on ethanol issues, right? And thinking about ethanol investments in Brazil in corn ethanol as opposed to sugarcane ethanol. And doing analysis around that and working directly with a professor here who was also working on the same thing from an academic perspective. It just so happened in that case they married up into a business proposition for his company as well as the academic piece. And they worked on that very closely together and pushed it in a research direction. And actually, in the end, they've ultimately published it in a journal article. That doesn't happen all that often, but it can and it does. And it's a great opportunity when we find that sort of right mix that leads to an opportunity to do research that impacts the company and the academy, as we like to call it, at the same time. So.
Sorry, my eyes are horrible. I've got to bring this closer. So then kind of following up on that, are there opportunities for on-campus research to accompany the distance piece? You kind of touched on that, kind of every once in a while it might happen.
Yeah, so, I guess the challenge that we would have there is that the physical location is going to matter. I suppose that Bill would have opportunities, because he's not far away from here, to do some work on campus with us in the ag business arena. But I would say, the focus of the program is around economic and business concepts, and so there's no laboratories in the ag econ department to be working in anyway. There would be faculty to be working with, and you could be working with them on computers or in offices, but you could probably do that just as easily remotely as you can do it in the building with us, I would say. So yeah, there are opportunities to do things with professors, and we're perfectly welcome to have you come and visit with us on campus. But I do think it's important, in case this person asking is a little bit confused about it. This is a distance-based program. Right. It's not a residency program. There is a separate program, the MS in Agricultural Economics, which is a residency program, and that's where you would want to apply if you want to come to Purdue, stay for an entire program, and do the entire thing in residency. It's a separate program from this one.
Sure. Okay, I'm going to read this question, and I'm going to answer the first part, and then, I'm going to read the whole thing. The first part goes to you, but I'm going to answer the second part here. The question is, are there specific jobs that you feel would benefit more from the program in terms of the coursework application? So hold on with that. This reading on, I would like to apply for the program next year, but was advised at work that being in a role with more responsibility may help me apply my coursework better than at the current role. If you don't mind, can you reach out to me and we can discuss your situation individually in terms of where you are professionally, how much experience you have, those sort of things, to fill out whether, okay, maybe a fall 18 start would be best for you, or maybe it's best to wait till 19 if there is a promotion in sight, kind of. So we can talk about that individually. But back to this other question, I could answer it, but I'm going to let these guys. Are there specific jobs you feel benefit more from the program in terms of coursework application?
No, I would tell you the people that are applying for this job want to work as hard as they can to do the things that they're doing as best they can to move the company forward. Think of them as the aggressive business people that are saying, look, I want to do this better. Now, maybe that works in a dairy operation. You're like, look, I want to change the feeding schedule because I'm in charge of that part of this one segment of a business, and I want to do it to the best of my ability with the skill sets required. There could be other people who are they're in the C-suite and they're like, you know what, I don't have all the skills that I need to do this job really effectively. So I wouldn't say there's one job that you say, now that I want to do that job, I need these skills. No, they apply to everything, and you can pick up as much from the operations management course as you want to if it pertains more to your job than the marketing part does. Right.
And I think too, I look at a number of applications and talk to a number of people, and kind of going back to what I said before in terms of specific jobs, we have some of the titles I mentioned before, but we have people that already have a PhD in agronomy, animal science, animal nutrition. So, and a lot of the focus of this program, which I don't think we spend a lot of time on, is a lot of the group work that you alluded to. So, even if you're in a specific role or job, I mean, what you'll pick up from your cohort classmates that are in a different part of the chain from you. So I don't think there's one job. I mean, if you looked at, I don't know, we're spreading out in the food and ag sector, and it's just amazing some of the even small niche roles that maybe there's only a few of those in the U.S., but.
So I'd agree with both of you. I guess there's a couple things I would say too. A program like this, whether it's our program or any other program, that's really a high-level program in developing business skills and developing the person and their leadership skills, is really the entire focus is preparing you for the next roles and responsibilities, regardless of whether those have an actual job change title or any particular job. It's about expanding the ability to take on roles and responsibilities in your organization that maybe you weren't ready for without a program like this to help develop you. So I'd say, so it doesn't matter where you are, right? Because it's going to prepare you for that next role up. This program, I think, is one that pushes people to think at a high level. So that means that it's probably even preparing you longer term for even the biggest of roles or the highest of roles that are going to take 30,000 foot views as well as technical pieces. So I think it probably prepares you for that as well. And the other piece I was going to say was, if I had to pick a spot where I thought maybe it has the biggest immediate impact, I would say it's probably folks with technical backgrounds who have suddenly had to move into a role or been asked to move into a role of management. And those people are going to be able to take so many of the concepts and immediately be like, oh, okay, that's how I do that, because they've been very, very good in food science and food quality control or whatever it is that they've been doing on the food science side. Mm-hmm. But now they have to manage a group of food scientists, and they're making decisions about a business unit and managing people and all these topics that we're talking about in the class. Suddenly it's like every topic we're talking about, they're going to be able to take it right away and use it. Sure. Bill, in accounting, he's like, well, it's interesting stuff for me, but I already do this, so it's helping me at the margin. But for these people, it's like, I've never even thought about this before.
Right.
So.
All right. Along the lines of impact, Alan, looking at students in the program that are maybe from outside the ag industry, have you seen a higher learning curve for those folks versus people that come into the program that are already in industry?
Yes, at the margin, but not a lot. I mean, all we're talking about in the end is basically a language, right? And I would tell you this: I've always said this. I grew up in the ag industry. I've worked in the ag industry all my career. Most of the people that are in the cohort have too. If the few people in there who maybe don't have as good of an ag background, if the group that's there can't teach them agriculture, then what are we going to teach them?
Sure.
Because that's what we know, right? I mean. You don't necessarily have to have that background. Surely we can teach you that part of it. We've talked about it in our center when we hire people. Well, we got to hire people with an ag background. I'm like, why do we need to hire people into the center with an ag background? I mean, if we can't teach them agriculture, we probably shouldn't be in the Center for Food and Agricultural Business, right? So yes, there's a learning curve. Of course there is, because there's this sort of language that any industry has. That people are going to be talking about things where I'm saying, I don't have any idea what they're talking about. We get over that uncomfortableness and say, yeah, you just used a term I've never heard before.
Right.
Well, that person will explain that to you, and I think you pick up on that relatively quickly. This is not a technical agriculture program or a technical food science program where, I don't only have to know the term, but I actually got to know what that technique is about.
Sure.
This program isn't about that.
Right.
No.
And like I alluded to before, our alums are our biggest advocates. Shoot me an email, call me, text me. If you want to talk to people, I can give you a list of people that were not in the ag space when they started this program. They either wanted it in or they had a situation they had to get out of it. But anyway, we can chat about that. So, all right. So we're about out of time here. Again, here's my contact information. Just kind of wrap it up. I'm going to give you guys each the floor for one last statement. Alan, why do you like being part of this program and everything that you do here?
Yeah, well, it's a blessing. In all honesty, it's a blessing to be the director of the program because, it's about the staff and the faculty that work in that program. I get the luxury to be the director and frankly, accolades that I probably don't deserve because I don't do much as director, it doesn't seem like to me, because there's a staff and a faculty here who care so much about having an impact and working with individuals to help them have an impact in the industry. And sometimes I wonder why I get paid to do it, because maybe I do it for free working with a group like this. And it's the message I'd want to leave with the group, that we care. We want people to to develop and to reach for better, and that we're all in this together and trying to help them work towards that achievement. That's why I like to be a part of the program.
And Bill, what did you enjoy most about the program?
I'll paraphrase something J.B. Penn says, and that's that a person with a MBA tries to solve problems. Effectively, they look at a bunch of data and they come up with a solution. A person with a master's program frames what that problem is. So for me, going through the program gave me sort of the whole picture, and it was huge. And having such ownership in the program, I guess I would say, has been very helpful. I feel like we're all sort of brand ambassadors of the MS-MBA program. So, you reach out to any of us, you get a feel for what the program is and contains. And that's something that I can't imagine you get at any other universities, to say, I went through this program and, I can tell you about it, or any of my other cohort members or any other cohort member can. We're a select few. Not all of us, not everybody that applies to this program gets in. And there's a lot to be said for the caliber of people that go through the program.
Well, Bill, Alan, thank you. I know you both have very busy schedules and taking time to join me today, so I wasn't just blabbering into the monitor. But for everyone else, we will post this online if you want to go back and review some of the things that were said. Again, take down my information if you have questions in 5 minutes, in an hour, in 2 weeks, in 2 years. Please reach out to me. So thanks again and have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Darren.